Alright, it's a new day in the workshop again. I just prepared and made the mortises on the second side piece. Now I'm gonna try and fit the back piece in there and mark for the live edges we have here, so I know where to cut the groove. I will also have to make new lines for the groove itself because my measurements of the board was incorrect. I marked for a groove that was 35 millimeters wide. It turned out it was sort of 37, 38. So I had to widen the through mortise a bit, and that also affects the lines for the groove, so I will have to mark both along the sides and at the edges. So I know where to cut it. The top live edge and the bottom live edge and the new line all the way along the side. And there we have it. As before, I set the combination square to 9 millimeters. I'm going to make the groove 10 millimeters deep, so I will chop down to 9 and finish down to 10 with the router plane, just like the other grooves. First, I will do knife wall. Oh yeah, that's right. Then I need a slightly smaller chisel for that, of course. Take out some material here at the curve. Try and test fit all the pieces now. Like that. gonna do now is 2 wedges on each side, one for the seat and one for the back. As you can see here, it's because of this big knot, the fibers went a little crazy and I had some ugly tear out here when I chopped the mortise from the other side. But that's not a real problem, only aesthetically, if you are bothered with that. I am a little bit, but not so much on this rustic thing. In order for the wedge to squeeze the joint together, I will chop the hole a couple of millimeters inside of that line anyway. So that's not a problem at all. And the wedge will be long enough to press against the flat surface above the chip out, so it will definitely work. And then I can continue marking on the other side of this. And also the tenon for the seat. Just make sure it's completely in place in the groove, and then I'll just make a line here. Very long tenons now. The plan is cutting the wedge holes first and then see how much more margin I need outside of the holes. If I make it that big, I might in the end have a tenon that's 40 millimeters or something outside of that, and then I will peg it through all the way to make it stronger so that piece can't chip out. I'm using a scrap piece of oak that I tried out the mold in plane on for a recent project. The width of it is 36 millimeters, and that's a pretty suitable width for these wedges. And how long do the wedges need to be? Just have to make an estimation. Maybe 130, 140 millimeters. I'll go for 130. I'll probably trim them to a shorter length once I fit them, and also give the bench a little bit of adjusting time, since this softwood may compress a little bit, which will result in the wedge ending up in a slightly lower position. I'm using wedges that I can adjust to get a suitable stop here. Hard piece of oak. That's better. Pretty similar. to the knife wall here on the underside now and tried to not make the angle too pronounced. Right, I'm putting the chisel up to the knife wall. A bit careful with the angle here. The joint squeezed together almost a millimeter extra, which made the wedge go down a little bit deeper. But that's why I made them a bit longer. Nice and strong connection. About 40 millimeters thick. So I will make wedges that are, what should I go for? 15 millimeters. The tenon is 70 millimeters. So I will make the wedges 50 millimeters on each side, so 170. Then I have a little bit to cut off later. Put the back piece in an upright position, the middle on the wedge, and 70 millimeters, which is the thickness of the tenon. And I measured this thickness of the wedge to 26 and this one to 21 millimeters. So 26 millimeters is from that line and out. It's 16 millimeters thick. I have my 16 millimeter chisel. So from the middle mark 8 millimeters and mark 16. To make it even more funny, I have one of these mortise gauges. There's 2 points here, as you can see. You can also use this side with 1 point. If you want to lay out mortises and tenons quickly, you can use this. Put the points of the gauge on those markings, slide its fence in and tighten it down, and then I can mark out like that. You could drill it out a bit first. I think it's fairly clear in this example why you don't cut the mortise all the way to the line or the knife wall, but I didn't really make a knife wall now. It's because you have to break a little bit to get all the chips out. And doing so you are denting this side of the mortise hole. Since I left about 2 millimeters of wood here, I can break into it without denting the edge of the mortise. And then I cut to the line when I run the chisel all the way through from both sides. And speaking of that, it's time to flip the board and mark out and cut from the other side. I already marked out on the bottom side, and now I flipped it around, so this is the reference side for the gauge now. There's the breakthrough. Now I can chop from the line. That in this example is not a knife wall because I just couldn't be bothered making a knife wall. I'll leave it and flip the board back around again. Now hopefully you can see the dent that happened here when I broke out the chips when I cut before. That's the reason you don't cut to the line directly. You save a couple of millimeters of material so you have something to break down upon. Otherwise that line would have been destroyed. But now it's time to cut to it. It's like 0.5 millimeter of play, I think, which should be good. I could take out a little bit more too if I wanted to, but I think this is good. Yeah, looks good. Nice and strong joint. Holds together really well. This is also the piece where I had some bad chipping out. But as you can see, the wedge, since it is quite tall, it rests on the flat side above the chip out. So there's no problem with that at all. And easy to take out. Let's do the other one. Okay, time for a first full assembly. Solid. I have done a few of these constructions before, not exactly this model, but a few other things. So the first ones I made wasn't so great. That's to be expected also if you try these types of constructions out. Your first ones might not be so good. Then you learn more and more the more you build. Okay, we'll take it apart and work on the aesthetics a bit. But now the basic construction is done. So I'll just finish my coffee and get back to work later. I should have had a cookie.